Now I'm nervous. Dang it. Alright, my name is Mary Scholes. I am pretty introverted until I'm not. I'm a pretty guarded person, I would say. I'm very disorganized. Yeah. Probably the core boundaries. I'm an all-around hot mess. I'm learning my senior year. I'll save that for the end, I guess. So I interned at Gatehouse Behavioral Health Services. They provide outpatient and intensive outpatient addiction counseling. A client that qualifies for this level of care will meet with their individual counselor bi-weekly. They will also attend group once a week for outpatient and 3 times a week for intensive outpatient. Intensive outpatient will meet 3 times a week for 2 hours each session, and it's run on the evidence-based practice of the matrix model. So a majority of my responsibility this semester is running the morning IOP program. It's a psychoeducational program that focuses on building early recovery skills and relapse prevention skills. So Gatehouse is a nonprofit organization. We have formal partnerships with the Lancaster County Drug and Alcohol Commission. We have contracts with several medical assistance, behavioral health plans. So that's basically what we do. It's a level of care. So if you're not familiar with like addiction in the recovery community, you would have like detox or long-term residential, like inpatient rehabilitation. You would have short-term inpatient rehabilitation, and all of these are, it's called a PCPC, which is the Pennsylvania Client Placement Criteria, and so they actually have to meet these criteria in order to receive those services. So it's very formal. It's not just like, oh, I want to do this program. You have to meet criterion for it so that we can bill for it. So we have a spectrum of clients who come to Gatehouse. So it's adults age 18. I think the oldest client we might have that I've seen is age 75. Some are participants with the door-to-door project. That's through the RACE project. What the door-to-door project does is it sends individual counselors into prisons to do a level of care assessment to see if they qualify for outpatient, intensive outpatient, a rehab, whatever it is. Those recommended for outpatient, I'm just going to call it OP or IOP, services can choose to come to Gatehouse. Even for clients who do not come through this program, a large portion of our clients have a criminal history for crimes often related to their addiction. They have difficulty finding housing, employment, or transportation. Another service that Gatehouse provides is drug and alcohol assessments. Some of the individuals who come for assessments might be required to get an evaluation as a result of getting a DUI. Whatever level of care that our counselors assess them at will be part of their mandated treatment. They can go and they can get a second opinion, but it won't be covered by county funding. So, many clients are step-down clients, which come from higher levels of care, such as inpatient rehab facilities, sober living houses. Many clients live in a recovery house and must participate in an outpatient treatment in order to stay in their recovery house. A large portion of our clients have co-occurring mental health disorders, most frequently depression and anxiety, and often bipolar disorder and PTSD disorder. A significant portion of our clients have a history of sexual, physical, and/or emotional abuse. All of our clients need to build positive supports in the recovery community and learn about relapse prevention skills and early recovery skills. Often substance abuse begins at a young age, usually 12 to age 14. It's used as a coping skill for trauma. Because use begins so early, clients often need to learn to rebuild their sense of identity, because maybe they missed that part of their development, or maybe they often find a large part of their identity in drugs and alcohol. I've had clients say, like, I'm good at using drugs, like I know how to get drugs, I don't know how to do anything else. They often use drugs to cope with negative emotions from grief and trauma. So as they're in early recovery, they usually have to go back to those points in time and deal with the unaddressed trauma. Clients face stigma, shame. Many have lost people very close to them. One client shared in a group setting that in 1 week, 6 people that she knew had overdosed or died. So they can be very resilient population. So some skills that were crucial in my internship were engagement skills, and the use of motivational interviewing, as well as utilizing the strengths-based perspective. So practice one, Kurt, was actually beneficial. It's really important, I think, whatever your placement is, to be comfortable in asking open-ended questions and knowing which open-ended questions and when to ask them and with which client. It can be particularly difficult in a group of 12 people, but you learn. And also motivational interviewing. My supervisor was kind of impressed that I had a foundational knowledge of this skill. Another skill that was essential, like I said, was the strengths-based perspective. I think even now, start reframing the way that you speak in your everyday life into a strengths-based perspective, and that transition will be easier. It will be more natural. Speak to yourself, other employees, and clients in this way. Be a person that other people want to be around, but make sure that you are sincere. Others will not trust you if you employ blanket flattery as opposed to a strength-based sincerity. Something that I learned at LBC that applied to my internship is to incorporate conceptual frameworks into my writing. For example, the biopsychosocial perspective is what we actually, that's actually the tool we use in our assessments. Also, Erickson's stages of development, the strengths-based perspective, and person and environment. They were kind of essential to most every interaction I had, most every piece of documentation that I had incorporated these. I wish that I had spent more time in class and more time reading on these topics. As far as my research class project, I made a qualitative / quantitative survey, and I asked clients at the Gatehouse what services that they found, like, in the community that they found beneficial, which ones would they like to know more about, such as like medical assistance or clothing or housing. And so I had the goal of making a resource manual. I didn't end up doing that for Gatehouse, but it was really helpful for me to learn how to write those questions, to kind of formulate a survey that wasn't leading, because those are things that we do in order to measure outcomes or to get client feedback at Gatehouse. So my most significant accomplishment was the confidence I was able to develop by engaging in supervision, practicing self-reflection, filling out core competencies, and practice behaviors. I was able to develop as a professional in a professional setting while still maintaining a sense of self and being weird and goofy. What I learned about myself was that despite my insecurities, sometimes I just had to fake it until I make it. And then like people would be like, "Oh, you're doing so good," and I'm like freaking out inside. They're buying it. I learned, especially for like drug and alcohol treatment, its success isn't measured in, oh, my client stayed sober, or oh, my client relapsed. It's the little victories. Did they achieve these measurable goals, or did they find employment, or did they find housing, or maybe even did I instill, in my encounters with them, did I model and instill some of their strengths and help them to see some of those? Yeah, and this is a population that I kind of love. And I mean, that's it. My advice, I wrote this down, is to ask questions. Find the expert in your agency, like that person that knows about everything. Like find that person, talk to that person, ask that person questions. Process with your supervisor. I was really fortunate in that my task supervisor and my field supervisor were very accessible to me. And even when they were talking about like administrative stuff or billing stuff or like networking with other agencies in the community, to like pay attention, because that'll really help round out your understanding of the field and engagement with clients.
And Mary, what's next for you?
So I got into grad school at Westchester Center City in their advanced standing program.
And?
Okay, well, to be fair on that, I'm waiting to hear to confirm a GA position for them that will cover the cost of my tuition. I agreed to stay on in Gatehouse Behavioral Health Services part-times for the months of May and June, leading their AMIOP group.
So there's a reason you should have some self-confidence. All right, thank you, Mary. All right, we are now transitioning into and
wait, which? Okay, I will reference that.
And I'm looking back now with all the ups and downs of your internships, and can you believe you're here now at this podium?
Yes.
Yes, because you are
Hello, my name is Anna Stefano, and to briefly introduce myself, I would describe myself as outgoing. I love to lead a fast-paced life filled with lots of people and lots of things to do. And I like to keep moving, and so I'll tell you a little bit about my story with internship later on at the close of this, but it's been a great year. My internship this semester was at the after-school program at the Mount Gretna campus of Wellspan Haven. Molly shared earlier about the Lancaster campus one, so it's a similar program, but a little bit different. So we do group therapy with kids aged between 5 to 14 who have a diagnosed mental health disability. We start off our group with some time for homework and some time for social interaction. That's a little more low-key. And our time interacting with clients begins right when they come in the doors, asking them questions, trying to engage with them, role modeling for them what it looks like to start a positive conversation, and then asking them to do that with their peers right from the beginning of the night. During Goals and Feelings group, we would ask them to listen while people talk, so that's a lot of all right, now is not an appropriate time to start a conversation. So throughout the whole night, we are guiding them, encouraging them to practice social skills. Oftentimes we would tell them, okay, we are practicing this social skill right now. We are sitting still, we are listening. And that was good. It's very hands-on, and there's never a moment of pause once the kids get there. My internship hours were from 12 to 8, and the kids would be there from about 4 to 7:30. So there would be, it wasn't like exhausting because I would go in and do paperwork and office work for the first couple of hours and lesson prep, craft and game preparing. Other things that we would do during our evening program were cooperative games. We would do a lesson, skills streaming was the curriculum we would use, also Superflex, and we would do a craft and a relaxation activity, and all of them were geared towards some kind of therapeutic tool, teaching them, as Molly shared, impulse skills, coping mechanisms, and general social skills. So about the clients that I worked with, as I said, they were all diagnosed with some kind of mental health disability. This might include attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, oppositional defiance disorder, anxiety, depression, eating disorders. I had opportunity to look at their treatment plans, which was an eye-opening experience because I got to see some of their family situations and the problems they were having in school, which was leading them to be referred towards the after-school program. So it could be issues of showing disrespect to teachers or other staff members, non-compliance with their parents, that they couldn't even go to places like the park without it being a big disturbance. A lot of these kids were also transferred from the day program at Phil Haven. The after-school program is a little bit less hands-on than inpatient or day program, so this would be almost a step out into, okay, now what does it look like to be involved in home and school without as many supports? One of the issues that came up really recently when talking with one of this client, kids, we call them children, not necessarily, it's not like they're adult clients, but one issue was encouraging the kids to take the lessons that they're learning and talk about it with their caretaker or parent, whoever is with them in the home environment. And one boy said they never care, they throw the papers away. And he was referring to his grandparents, who he lives with. And so one issue that we encounter is taking the skills that we learn in the program and transferring them to the home environment, which is the goal, and also the school environment. So this is something that we've talked about at staff meetings and also just encouraging clients. What can you do if your parent or guardian says, I'm not interested? You can say, maybe when you have a chance, can we look at this together? So just trying to help them to stay strong in the difficult situations that they might encounter. At the same time, I would like to say that we do have a parents' night once a month, and I got to see families interact with their kids, show support to where they're at. I realized that some kids have a really good home life, and mental illness when you're a child is just a huge hurdle to go over. So families can be supportive, but it is hard, and so the parents need support and need learning experiences just as the kids do. Also, there's a wide breadth of economic levels there, and the program is fully funded with insurance. So even if you could afford to pay for your kid to be there, it's funded through insurance, so parents never make a payment. Two of the skills that I was able to apply while I was at my internship were creative skills, planning and running group sessions. So this would more refer to the craft and game time that we would do. Often there would be a curriculum, but I would get to use just creative skills to adapt it to the children that I knew that were coming that evening and kind of where they were at their level of ability to participate, whether we could go outside to do this activity or whether it'd be way too chaotic if we left the group room. So just being able to practice those skills. And also, I was able to apply knowledge gained in research, so thank you, Lynn, for your assignment. I studied trauma-informed care and what that looks like in children with mental health, and learned a lot about how staff need to be informed on the presence of trauma in the lives of kids, and then understand how that affects everything in life, from their schoolwork to their friendships and the way that they would struggle to develop relationships and know appropriate boundaries and manage their aggression. So one specific thing that I have applied for my LBC learning is how to listen to people. This isn't particularly a social work principle, but being at LBC, I was able to take classes in women's ministry, spiritual formation, intercultural studies, and of course social work. And one thing that I'm keeping as I leave is how to be present to individuals, to hear their story instead of just kind of thinking of them as just another person or just another kid. To really listen to their life and let that inform how I think about them and view them and work with them. My Effort Change project was a really fun experience for me. I actually worked with another intern from Millersville. His name is Shai, and together we looked at the program and talked about some things that we thought could be improved. And one of them was the way that the students picked their goal. So at the beginning of the night, we gather for a goals group, and we go around and we ask each individual student, which goal are you going to work on tonight? And we noticed that a lot of them were choosing the same goal night after night after night, and they would also choose what the person ahead of them had chosen. So if Johnny had picked, I'm going to listen by one, then Eric would say, I'm going to listen by one, and soon everyone was just listening by one. And we knew that there were deeper things to work on in their treatment plans, but oftentimes the activities counselors would not have time to go over, okay, these are your specific goals. This is what you need to work on. So I actually brought in what we did. We made folders to be added to each of the binders, and we put in a little chart that'll show them which color corresponds with how they did each evening. So a red, they're going to color it red if they had if they struggled that night. Yellow and green. Green is for excellent night. They didn't need a lot of intervention from staff. And then we individualized each client's treatment plan. So we created a master list of all the goals that could be possibly in their treatment plan, and then went through and created a sheet for each client. And so these are just short little phrases that they can choose each night, such as accept limits or expectations without arguing, or will attend to assigned task and follow directions. And then at the close of each evening, the staff give them a report card, how you did, and that corresponds to the red, yellow, or green. And then the student would be able to color in what they did on each day that they came to the program. So this is just a way for them to track with how they're doing. And we came up with this idea through surveys asking the kids, how would you like to be able to pick your goal? Do you struggle picking your goal? And do you know what's on your treatment plan? So that was really fun, and I liked that I didn't have to do it alone. I did it with Shai, and that was really cool. I would say that one of my accomplishments was just being able to lead groups. From just coming in January, I've now been able to lead a full night. I'm not allowed to be alone with the kids, so there has always been another staff member. But just from coming in and leading them in goals group and going through a whole night of activities and therapy groups, it's been really fun to implement the social skills training. One example, I brought another example. This is really silly, but this is like stuff that I would come up with when I go to internship. If we're going to practice coping skills, then we might incorporate the craft to teach the coping skill. So one of the coping skills is deep breathing. And so for the craft time, we used, what do you call this? Pipe cleaner to make a little heart shaped. And then we would dip that in the bubbles, and they would have to practice deep breathing by blowing bubbles. And we would do that activity outside, and then we would get to talk about that activity and and then also evaluate as a group how we did following directions, and if they struggled with it or if it was easy for them. And what did I learn about myself? So I actually transitioned from Salvation Army to WellSpan Phil Haven After School Program at the end of December. I learned that I love structure, and I really love supervision and just working alongside other colleagues. And that was absent in my internship at Salvation Army. So I also learned that I love to ask the question, is there something better? Is there something more? And so I took time to think about whether I wanted to try and find a different internship. And I also talked with Mary and I don't really remember who all I talked with. Talked with a lot of people, and I just I moved on to Phil Haven, where I was able to have a very positive experience working in a group therapy setting, and I learned that I really like group therapy with kids or with adults. So.
Do you have a specific little piece of advice for junior
yes.
year or for senior year success?
Juniors, I would say whoever said read Tasha's one is perfect. Just read like what your assignments are, because I still ask questions about that.
Is there a book for this class?
I think that all of us as teachers spend a lot of time making really clear, long example, or, explanation of assignments. Yes, we would appreciate if you read them. Excellent advice. Eventually you got it. Eventually you figured that out, right? All right. We are our last, yeah, we're on our last. Sissy, last but not
Christmas, guys! What do you expect less of me? Your son, I love Christmas. This is just like at the Christmas party with the kids. So. Okay. Hi guys, I'm Missy Campbell. When I'm not doing social work, I really enjoy working on the tech team or doing theater and stage production. So not normally in front of a microphone, so this is a little nerve-wracking, but considering this is my senior project, probably should be here. The population that I would like to serve in the future is veterans, and someday I would like to incorporate animal-assisted therapy into my social work practice. So this year, I have been interning at Transitional Living Center, TLC, which is a division of Tabor Community Services. At TLC, we work with, we house lots of different populations. We are technically a homeless shelter, but it's more of kind of transitional living, I mean, it's in the title. But so we house veterans in the Veterans Victory House program, RMO population, which are men and women coming out of prison, and families in the emergency shelter program. TLC is also the home of Lancaster County's supportive services for veteran families. Most of my experience is with the RMO population and the emergency shelter families, with a few veteran families thrown in the mix. All of the clients on my caseload are experiencing homelessness. These clients all have a low economic status, which could have been caused by lost employment, family situations, or generational poverty. Most of my clients have an open case at the Department of Public Welfare for SNAP, cash assistance, or medical insurance, if not all three. Several of our clients struggle with mental health and are working with organizations like TW Panessa or Phil Haven. We assist our clients connect to these resources and more in the hope that they will, in the end, will gain stable housing. There are several skills that are critical in my internship, and one of these skills is organization. I need to stay on top of my caseload, and in order to do this, I made sure that my case notes were always up to date, my clients' files stayed neat, and they had all the needed information, and that I kept my office organized. This was because I was only at internship for 2 days a week, Monday and Wednesday, and whenever I wasn't there, there's always a crisis. So my clients would have to go to my supervisor, and if he didn't know the answer, he'd have to look in his files. So I need to make sure that all of my files were up to date and complete at all times. And if they weren't in the file, my case notes were what he would go to. And then another skill that was important was communication. This skill was one of the ones that I needed to improve on the most. Kurt gave us a sheet last year of what we were really good at and what we needed to improve. And communication was something that I needed to improve on. In my internship, I needed to articulate with my clients what they needed to do to stay in compliance to their particular TLC program. And then communication with my supervisor was also important, because if he didn't know what I was struggling with, he couldn't help me. Though I knew I could always go to my supervisor with questions, we always had weekly supervision meetings, which are so helpful. So I would encourage all of you guys to have supervision. Something I learned through the social work curriculum that I applied in my internship is the plan change process. We used each step of this process. First, with the engagement and assessment, by getting to know the client. We would do our intake, and we'd ask questions, get to know them, see where they are at life, and supervisor always said we meet them where they are. Also, we would create and implement an individual housing plan with the participant, and this was our planning and intervention stage. And then finally, we would help them find housing and close their case. I've also learned how to use the strengths-based perspective, and I can see how it really helps clients on their journey. I've seen firsthand that building on the client's own strengths is beneficial to completing their IHP. So after observing the challenges of the participants, I work with a lot of families. And so they're in crisis, they're homeless, they have no idea what's happening in the next few months. And so I decided with my supervisor to work on a project centered towards parenting. So my Change Effort project was to create something that my supervisor could maintain after I leave. So I created a newsletter, and I would talk about, I'd find an article that was informational, so on certain subjects, and then on the back of the newsletter it would be something fun from a parent who's experiencing something similar, and then there would be a challenge from me, something that would get them off of their phones and interacting with their children. So after several months of distributing this newsletter, I created a survey and had conversations with the parents to understand what they liked, what could be improved, and what they disliked. This impacted my experience because I was able to put into practice some of the research skills that Link taught me. And it improved and sharpened the skills that I've used and learned throughout my schooling and the rest of my internship. The most valuable component of my internship that benefited my growth is my supervisor. Stephen taught me so much about the practice of social work and about the resources in the Lancaster County area. Also, he's a great cheerleader. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna cry. Ooh. When I didn't understand something, Stephen would explain it, and he would take time, and he'd go over it with me. And when I was super scared to try something new, he would push me past my insecurities. Because of Stephen's guidance, I've been able to assist a family find their own home, and that is the most rewarding feeling I've experienced through this internship. Something that I learned about myself is that I have had a lot of doubts about myself and my abilities. I was insecure about my performance at an internship, and I didn't want to do anything wrong. I learned that we all make mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes. As the time went on, my confidence grew in myself and the work that I do. I've been able to complete a client file without looking at the lead sheet, which is so cool because there's so much stuff in those files. I have done solo intakes, and I have carried my own caseload since October. I'm really proud of these accomplishments. Really proud. And for advice for you juniors, I was gonna say, like, just have fun and relax, but I think something that's really valuable for me is the girls that I've gone through this whole process with. So get to know your classmates, rely on them, because you're gonna be networking with them through your internship. I mean, several times Rachel has come to TLC, and there's several of us that go to HSPN together, so it's just really get to know those girls because they're going to be your supports through it all.